And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am.
Hey, welcome to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Hey, it's been a minute, gang. It is the 2nd of May. It is 2026, and our national debt has climbed a tad since our last live stream about 3 months ago. It's now $39,193 billion. Gosh darn it. You know, and I remember when, I was thinking 10 trillion was a lot. Apparently not. Apparently I was underthinking the situation here. So apparently we can go up to 40 trillion and everyone still has faith in the currency. That's nice. That works. So apart from all that, a lot has happened in the news, and a lot has been happening nationally, internationally, and what have you. And I get that. And I was at the grocery store today. So I went to the bank first to take out a second on my home, and then I went to the grocery store to go spend the money. We all know what that's like, because I also had to go and put gas in my tank. These things are upon us. These are the things we were worried about, and they are upon us, but it's not the focus of what we're talking about tonight. But it is a major problem that we can't seem to deal with. We can't seem to get a handle on. No matter what we do, no matter how much we speak about this, no matter how much we seem to care about it, the people in D.C. and the people at the Federal Reserve don't seem to. So I'll tell you what, for right now, for those of you listening on radio, $39,193 billion is our current debt as of the 2nd of May, 2026. And it's been a while. I don't remember what the price of gold and silver was the last time we did a live stream. But the price of gold as of today, once again, the 2nd of May, 2026, gold is at $4,614.34. Silver is at $75.27. Never fear, though, because the day is coming where we won't be pricing these things in dollars anymore. And when that day comes, you're going to have a gold mine. I meant, literally and figuratively. So I keep stacking. So that's what I am personally doing. But I am not a financial consultant. I never claimed to be. But it's worked out pretty well for me so far. I remember purchasing rounds of silver for $10 a piece. Actually, I remember all the way back to $7 for a round of silver and an ounce of silver. So it's gone up more than 10 times since then. But at the same time, I think these particular assets are way undervalued. But once again, the higher silver and gold go, the worse the dollar looks. And that's the game here, gang. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Denver Ellis out of Dent County, running for presiding commissioner of the county. And part of his platform is very, very impressive. Denver recognizes that there is corruption within the county. Denver wants to end that corruption. He wants to talk about the corruption, not just talk about transparency, which is what you hear from your average politician. Yeah, we need a more transparent government. We hear that from people running for federal government. We hear about it, people running for state, sometimes even on local level. But how many of them say, I know where the corruption is. I know where the problems are. I know where the bodies are buried. I know how to deal with this. I know how to take care of it. And then basically actually run for that office. Because I suspect if someone literally says something like that, not only do they mean it, but they're probably going to get attacked. They're probably going to have their name dragged through the mud from their opponents. They're probably going to be, basically under siege until the primary is complete and over with. And I think that's probably what will happen. But at the same time, if we don't have good people running for office, we have lost, folks. We've lost everything. And it all starts on the local level, every bit of it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Denver Ellis to you, and he can tell us a little bit about himself and the position that he's running for in Dent County, and basically what he would like to do. And I would like everyone to chime in with your questions for Denver about the corruption in Dent County. You want to talk about, data centers? I'm sure he'd love to talk about that as well, about mineral rights and water rights and things of that nature, because this is something that a county commissioner has some say over. So, but at any rate, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Denver. I know that that you were working right up to the last minute too, so we really appreciate you making time for us.
Well, I appreciate you, Patrick. It's been a long day, so I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you very much.
You bet. You bet. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Denver Ellis. Nice to meet you. To those who don't know me, Patrick, I know you and a few other people that's we've knocked on a few doors in Dent City together. We've done some accomplishments up there together. We've done some things that I've got involved with. You guys allowed me to be with you guys on some journeys that was very, very educating to myself, and some of it has taught me a lot that I carry with me, and it's actually helped me do the things that we're trying to do now. So to start this off, let's just let you know, I was not going to run for presiding commissioner of Dent County. That was not my goal, but God changes things. I actually had started my own podcast that I hadn't got kicked off yet. It's called Hillbilly Politics, and you'll find that on Facebook, and that's a K, not a C in there. And between talking with you and other people, we had some doors open up where people was willing to talk about some things that needed to be talked about. One of the things we'll cover tonight is the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. Yeah, we're going to talk about data centers. We're going to talk about government accountability. We're going to talk about critical minerals a little bit there. That's not my forte, but we got some news yesterday that I think it needs to be talked about a little bit. So without any further obstructions here, let's go straight down to why I'm running, Patrick.
Okay.
I'm running because simply nobody else did. Nobody else did. And in Dent County here, we've already got a situation. I feel it's a situation. A lot of people feel it's a situation, but you already have a husband and wife. One is a commissioner, one is our treasurer. And with that comes not the checks and balances as needed. There's not the transparency there. There's later on, as you well know, there's going to be some things that comes out. I've got to wait till the rest of that is documented before I say anything. I know you understand that. But so now my opponent is now, his wife is a sitting judge. So he is running for presiding commissioner. So that would have two families in the executive office and judicial office of our local government here. I don't know how to say this. I don't know these people personally like that. This is not personal at all, Patrick. This is about the checks and balances as needed in place to bring the accountability to the government and the transparency needed to our community, the taxpayers, the guys, the guys out there in the logwoods, the ones behind the sawmills back there, our farmers, our ag people, the people that makes up the county that pay these taxes. They need some accountability back to them. You understand that part?
Absolutely, I do. And accountability seems to be missing, everywhere we go. And I'm not going to hijack, your talking points right here. But let's just talk about the federal government for a second here, because it's very easy and everyone knows it. If I talked about Missouri, it would be a little more complicated. In the federal government, what it is they simply aren't listening to us anymore. They just aren't listening. And it's interesting because this is a campaign season for them. And for them to literally come back to their constituents and ask for a vote when they have not been listening to their constituents for 2 or 4 years or 6 years in some cases. They simply are, their office will take your phone call, but they do the exact opposite of what their constituents are asking for. And we can't seem to get anything done in Washington, D.C. anymore because of the gridlock. The Senate is constantly in a state of doing nothing. So it is what it is. But this is yet another way they can actually prevent any good things from happening in government as well. yes, it does prevent bad things from going through, but we need good things to go through. And this is what I see happening with a lot of counties, is what the people want seems to be the exact opposite of what the commissioners seem to do. Zoning is a great example of this. And I could go into examples of stuff I was involved in right here in Christian County. But it doesn't matter. I mean, Christian County is a separate animal, and I'm not running for office. But zoning is one example. So data centers, I'm sure someone's going to ask that tonight. You know, basically, if you become the presiding commissioner, are you going to allow data centers, you know, basically within the county? And as a presiding commissioner, you have a lot of say over that because of zoning regulations, right?
Absolutely. And no, I would do everything in my power to prevent any type of data center becoming within anywhere down in these parts at all. In fact, if I might step ahead just a second here, I would like to tell you that the 21st of May here in Salem, Missouri at our armory, I think that's 1200 North Rolla Road. I'm not for sure exactly the address there, but at 5:30 or 6 o'clock that night, actually, Representative Bill Hardwick, who is running for Senatorial District 16 as a senator there, he and I are going to co-host a data center town hall. That's one of the big things that's coming out here real soon. So Bill Hardwick and I will be in the same room, in the same town hall, speaking on the exact same issue that you're talking about there. So no, I'm adamantly against data centers moving down into rural Missouri.
Okay, what about a constituent that would say, well, we're falling behind then because our neighboring counties will get these data centers. They'll get the jobs. You know, they'll get the resources coming in. What would you say to someone like that?
I don't know of any county down here that would welcome those. We're sitting down here on the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. The current river is the headwaters is right here in Dent County. And our resources is already to the point where it wouldn't sustain that type of facility anyhow, number one. Number two, we're in such a large fight with the federal government and the overreach as we have it here now. A data center coming here would be detrimental to us. We have another large company just in our back door down here. You may or may not be familiar with. It's Doe Run, which is the largest lead mine corporation in the world, I believe. They are good neighbors, but you know we're going to be turning into critical minerals here not very much longer from now. But some of the information, let's go to the data center part. Let me backtrack here a little bit. So yesterday I get the news that Missouri S&T has received some more grants or funding from, I think it was the DOJ, perhaps? No, the DOD. I'm sorry.
Department of Defense.
Yes. And, you know, when me and you and a couple other people went up to S&T last fall, and we went in there and we watched and we learned about their nuclear program there and the mini, what was that called again, Patrick? Their
modular reactor.
That's what it is. That's a fancy word for me, but I'm glad you got it. So, you know, we learned that those could be placed underneath our water aquifers. And to my understanding is S&T is now going to be coming through Dent, Shannon, Reynolds, Carter, Howell, every county down through here in this Ozark belt here that has old mine shafts. They're going to be restudying those. I believe to be on the look about where to place maybe some of those mini reactors, and also they're testing for critical minerals along the way. And so anything that's uncharted, and there's a lot of I have an old mine that's probably less than a half a mile from my house that isn't charted. So with that being said, they're on the move to do that, and that is to support these data centers, supposedly, from my understanding. So it might get really interesting. The water source that we have here is already trying to be transferred out west. So what more do they want to take from us? So there's no counties here, to my knowledge, that would even welcome one of them. I think that there would be a large issue unless we got into the eminent domain process with that. So.
Yep, but at the same time, thankfully, and this is not a good thing, gang, because if you hear the stories coming out of the state of Virginia right now, what's happening to the town's water supplies where they put these data centers, it's extremely, okay, forget the farmers for a second because they won't have water. They won't, not in Virginia. But the people, the water pressure is so low and it's so contaminated. It's coming out kind of a rust brown color, from their tap water, from their faucets in their homes. So not only is the water getting contaminated, but there's so much use by the data centers. There's not enough pressure for enough water pressure to serve the town, the people's needs. That is the people's water supply, not the data centers' water supply. It is the people's. And the same thing, you just talked about minerals and mineral rights, water rights. That belongs to the people of Dent County, period, end of story. And this is why they have to go through a process to get data centers in. But here's my scary question for you, Denver. What if, and I'm not saying this has happened, but what if all the corporations that have an interest in Dent County have already greased all the wheels with the existing commissioners? Contracts get signed, and then you get elected. Can you reverse that process?
I don't know the answer to that, but I guarantee you that I would do my very best to pull in all the help that I could to reverse that. I don't know that those conversations that has or has not taken place. I do know that, and this is only rumor, I've not seen it myself, but I do understand it to be, and I'm pretty informed about different things, that there has been 2 companies already down in our region here looking at places here in Dent and in Shannon County to place a data center. And Shannon County is immediately to our south. So,
okay. Yep. Well, it seems to be, by the way, it's the eastern side of the state they seem to be much more interested in for data centers, oddly enough. And I know why.
Well,
go ahead.
Because this is the 8th congressional district down here, and this is the poorest one of the poorest congressional districts in the nation.
But you also have a lot of water, water aquifers, and you have an enormous amount of minerals.
Well, that's what I started to say. It's easy prey because a lot of people around here are not. There's not a lot here, so they may bring in the promise of jobs and economic development, and you can hear the story a long line of list of what they think that they can say, but so they think it's easy prey here. That would just be my guess. I mean, there's so many resources here; it's just phenomenal. Critical minerals, which I don't know if Isaac is available tonight or not, but Isaac will tell you that it's one of the largest, richest deposits in the United States. We're sitting on top of it right here.
Yeah. You guys have lithium. You guys have a lot of copper. And Isaac has informed me. There's a lot of stuff they found in the eastern side of the state that we just don't have a lot of on the western side of the state. It's the aquifer, though. The aquifer under the eastern side of Missouri, covering part of Arkansas as well, is the largest source of potable water in the United States of America. There isn't a single bigger, better source of pure, clean water than you guys have right there on your side of the state. That's what they want. And by the way, Isaac has identified bills, all kinds of bills for the last 2 or 3 years, where basically they're trying to pipe the water out to other states. And of course, with no recompense for the people. That's their water. It's corporations getting paid, and then I'm sure the county, the government gets some of it, but nothing goes to the people. That's not the way they work in Alaska, per se. So the bills were literally designed to make sure the people, and these are bills that Isaac identified in years gone by. So I'm not talking about anything current that I'm aware of right now. But the bills were designed as such that basically, someone could go with a permission slip and, start sucking water out of the aquifer right there in eastern Missouri, the largest potable water source in the entire United States of America. And that permission slip, it could be gotten so easily politically, and there was absolutely no charge beyond the charge it was to get the permission slip. And I'm sure that that's just a regulation or an ordinance permission slip, but that's going to be a friend of a friend. That's going to be a cousin, someone that actually is in government, that's actually got a corporation that's going to pipe the water out. This is the kind of corruption. This is the good old boy system, the slap each other in the back, basically, and congratulate each other, with wine sniffers and cigars in some back room, making sure that all the money for any big projects that happen, even when the federal government's involved, goes to family. And that's exactly the problem we have in D.C. as well. So what you're up against in basically in Dent County, I'm sure we have very similar problems in all the counties in the state of Missouri. And I'm going to say something else before we continue with this conversation. If anyone is considering running for office to end corruption anywhere in the state of Missouri, if that is what you want to do, please contact me and let me know. I will give you time on our live stream. Just email me, patrick@mofree.org, because, gang, this is really important. The system that we have right now is falling apart. It's failing. And this is where most of the corruption happens in the fall of an empire, is at the end. So I'm sorry, I broke up your conversation there, Denver.
No, you're good, because you're exactly right. It's got to start back home, Patrick. It's got to start back at that local level. You got to start there and then rebuild the trust of the people. I'm not for sure about the other areas in Missouri, but I know my counties here around here pretty good. A lot of people here has lost hope. They're just like, why should I bother? Because they're going to do what they're going to do anyhow, just like you said. And so you have people, our latest turnout here was like less than 10% in a citywide election. There was like I think there was less than 400 people, right around 400 people that voted to decide city leadership. And that's with, let's see, there was 5 candidates running, 3 on one side, 2 on the other side for East and West Ward. And you had 400 people or less decide the whole thing. Yeah. In a city of 4,500. Now that wasn't that's not all the registered voters, but so you got to start back home, and you're exactly right. And the one of the biggest issues we have here, let's move along to one of the bigger issues that's not, you can't say, all right, what if? This is an issue right now that's huge for us, and this is the Ozark National Scenic Riverways, Patrick. So that's sitting in our back door, and they're treating it like a national park. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The Ozark National Scenic Riverways was formed in 1964, like August of '64, and it was under congressional. The Department of Interior went through Congress, and they declared it a scenic easement, the National Scenic Riverways. So it's a scenic easement. It's a scenic riverways, but it's ran by the National Park System, the NPS. Okay. So for the last multiple years, one of the main goals is to make sure that locals are treated unfriendly for the most part. Last April, we was in committee over this exact same thing. You had Representative Don Mayhew, I think Representative Tony Harbison, Representative Benny Cook. They all came together and they had different pieces of legislation about the riverways, but there was a committee up there. And believe it or not, because of the overreach, the room was full of people all the way to Jeff City. I think we didn't get started till like 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. So you turn around, you have the Sheriff Hogan of Shannon County. You had a couple of commissioners from Shannon County. The whole room was packed full of people from Shannon County. But that ain't the only county this thing that includes. It includes Dent, Shannon, Carter. It goes through some Reynolds. There was 5 counties in that in the initial forming of the riverways. And guess who the only person was there officially for Dent County was, Patrick?
The official for Dent County, is the undersheriff?
There was none.
None?
Denver Ellis was the only one that testified in that hearing for Dent County. There was 2 people from Dent County there, the guy that went with me and myself. I was the only one there for Dent County. Our officials did not show up for that meeting at all, and they was aware of that meeting.
Wow. Misty Atkinson, has a few comments I'm going to share with you real quick, because actually they sound a little bit positive here. So thank you, Misty, for your comments here, and I'm about to read them. She writes, Camden County just had a huge commission meeting concerning an opportunity zone that a data center was buried in it. Thank goodness the commissioners and Camden County residents were asking. Thursday's commission was a packed house. Presiding Commissioner Ike Skelton, who is running for Missouri Senate, says he can't say no, but there is an ordinance, or there will be, that if there is a data center, it cannot, number one, it cannot access the aquifer, period. Also, a very low decibels at the property line, as well as vibration levels that will be allowed, and it must have its own power source. And so she says, and she finishes out by saying, I believe there are some other stipulations, but that helps mitigate concerns of local residents. That is very true. But that's where we come to, basically these modular reactors, because they're not thorium-based. The one that we saw, the one that we visited in Rolla, was not a thorium reactor. It was a standard, uranium reactor.
That one's more of a research reactor.
Yes, it's a research.
Way too small to actually produce power.
Sure. Well, it can produce power, but probably
in extremely limited amounts, and the kind of infrastructure you need to do a research reactor is not something you're going to put there.
Sure. They do all kinds of testing there, basically for, certain types of elements and whether or not they absorb radiation, that sort of thing. And but at the same time, I do have to let you guys know that was a very interesting presentation that we had when we went there to Rolla, because I really didn't understand the nature of a research reactor, nor did I understand that basically the way these things are constructed, they really can't melt down in a standard way. So, I mean, that is helpful. But Misty, thank you very much for your comments on Camden County. I did hear a little bit about that, but I didn't get all the details you just gave me. So thank you very much. So that, being aside, and by the way, modular reactors is almost directly tied into these data centers. I mean, you almost can't escape talking about the modular reactors when you're talking about the data centers, because I will tell you, Denver, I remember when people were talking about, well, the whole world's going to crypto. But the mining operations for crypto, there's not enough electricity on the planet to do it. Yet these data centers suddenly pop up, and yes, we can definitely make power for those, but we can't make it for data mining, for crypto mining. In other words, handling crypto transactions. So basically, there's a political will problem with that. And by the way, crypto by far and large is a free market. It's not my thing. I'm not into that. I like silver and gold, but I'm just throwing it out there as one of the things they said they could not do because of the power concerns. When it comes to these data centers, there is no more talk about power concerns. They're just talking about putting modular reactors everywhere they possibly can to power these data centers, which they didn't do before. Now, what is our understanding to this point, what they're doing with these data centers? Because it's simply not data storage. There must be something more going on. Do you have any more details? Like, for instance, the computing power for AI is a concern for a lot of people. And if we're putting up thousands and thousands of massive data centers all over the United States, this is way more than is needed for computing power for AI. Way more than is needed. So something else is afoot here. Do you care to, and probably as your role right now, you're running for presiding commissioner, so maybe you don't want to speculate as much, but I tend to think that this is a way to take away everyone's Fourth Amendment right in every way humanly possible. And that's what these data centers. Yep, Palantir. I mean, we could talk about flock cameras. And by the way, if you become presiding commissioner, you would make me very happy if you got rid of every flock camera in your county. But I know that's a law enforcement issue, and so I get that. But go ahead.
Well, I'm not a fan of those, but to go back to what you were saying, first of all, I'm not real happy with the thought of one of those little reactors sitting underneath my water aquifer.
Yep, that's right. Right on top of your water aquifer. Right on top of it.
Yeah. So this is where this is going to be, either above it or below it. That's where they're exploring these mines apparently down here. So that's one of my main concerns right there. But yeah, absolutely, your Fourth Amendment I don't think would no longer exist, because right now, if you have your phone sitting in another room and you speak about something that you're looking for at Menards, you go pick up your phone. What's on your phone?
Yeah.
Where do you find? You're going to find an ad that says, "Hey, there's that ladder I was talking about at Menards."
Yep.
So what are they going to collect in these data centers?
That's right.
How are they going to? What's it going to be used against you? It's phenomenal. Technology isn't bad. How we apply it could be horrible.
Yep. I have to say this because Misty made me smile again. Misty just typed in, Ike Skelton is the presiding commissioner that physically took down a flock camera in Camden County. So I guess the precedent has been set.
Well, I mean, they wanted to get him on felony charges over that.
Yeah, I know, but they couldn't.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know they couldn't. They had to drop it.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I gave him an out there while I was saying,
Well,
putting pressure on the poor guy.
I'm
Yeah.
sad to say that we don't have the leadership here that would do that anymore. It's that. Let me tell you something about it. I had a good conversation with Sheriff Hogan down in Shannon County just last week. He is the closest thing I've ever seen to a constitutional sheriff. He will be on Hillbilly Politics in the future, coming up for some podcasts. Patrick, I'd like to connect you to at some point in time. You would that would be a good conversation for you to have with somebody right there.
Sure.
He would be a good ally for the Missouri Freedom Initiative and other things. But there's so much stuff that's out there, and people don't really think about the power of your local government, how it really does affect you. It's not just setting, and don't get me wrong, I'm not undermining anybody, but there's more to being in that type of position than making sure your roads is fixed and to make sure that some of the infrastructure is put in place, et cetera, et cetera. We have lost the balance of true representation at the local level. Everybody is depending upon now your state rep or your senator or your congressman. Let me tell you something. I've heard 100 times from our commissioners here locally that the problem with the Park Service down here is not their problem. It is Jason Smith's problem. Mm-hmm. Now, Jason Smith and I don't agree with a lot of things, okay? Not because he's wrong or I'm right, because maybe I don't understand the values totally 100%. But this is not Jason Smith's problem. This is not Justin Brown's problem. This is not John Hukin's problem until the counties go together and make it their problem. You got to have leadership that will lead that up in order to accomplish something. So this is not something that just can keep being ignored and putting it someplace else and just, well, we'll just blame somebody else because they're not here to speak up for themselves or whatever. And that's not just the Riverways. That's a lot of issues in the local side. They're just, people don't want to speak up. The leadership doesn't want to lead. They just want to sit back and pretend that they're doing something when in actuality they're not. It's like leadership by abstention. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
They're elected there. They're paid to do the job. And by the way, I was asked this question just this morning. No, when I get elected, I'm not quitting my job. I'm not going to depend on an elected spot to support my family, pay my bills, and take care of my cows. And no, I'm not going to vote myself in a raise like it is traditionally done around here. It's silly, and I'm not going to just be in an office 2 days a week. I've already made arrangements to do what I need to do as a full-time presiding commissioner, to go the places I need to go and do the things I need to do on behalf of the county. It's like, Patrick, right now, just blurt it out real quick. How much do you get paid to go to Jeff City to knock on doors, Patrick?
Zero. Zero.
Exactly.
Absolutely zilch.
Exactly. Yeah, we all pay our own gas money. We buy our own lunch.
You know what, though? Scott Fawn had mentioned that there was a probability that I got an $800,000 liberal dark money check.
That will never not be funny.
And so, at any rate, he said that on one of his live streams. And but I've never received the check. I wish I had, but I've never received it. And then it was echoed around a few people in Jefferson City. They were saying that Rogue Politics and Missouri Freedom Initiative, split the money, $400,000 apiece.
Nice.
So yeah, that would be nice if it happened. But because basically what was happening was you had a lot of so-called conservative grassroots that were going after Dean Plocker. And because there were scandal after scandal, do you remember this scandal? It started really in 2020,
very well.
2022, 2023 timeframe. And so we helped to expose some of those. And of course, then we got attacked and by, Dean Plocker's friends. And Dean Plocker, basically he, and we're going to talk more about this later because this has nothing to do with what you're doing. But I do know for a fact that Bill Hardwick is running for a Senate seat, and Hannah Kelly, is that her name?
Yes.
Okay, she's running
Yes.
against him. She was sitting on the ethics committee that didn't do anything about Dean Blocker. And so I just want people to know that. I mean, when you want to go out and vote, it's really important to understand the nature of what you're dealing with here. And basically, there is a good old boy club, and some people have 1 foot in and 1 foot out until they need to draw both feet in. And so this is a problem in Missouri politics, and we see it all the time. Now, that is not you. I know you. But
No.
I think that is your opponent. In fact, I think your opponent might have 2 feet in. And once again, I don't know your opponent very well. It's not like I've been looking directly into this race. But the fact of the matter is, I hear this all the time, Denver. I hear it all the time, and I know a lot of people in politics, as you may imagine, that they want transparency, but they never, ever, ever talk about the corruption that's going on. That's the taboo subject. That's what they won't talk about. And so what we need, there is no need for transparency if we don't admit we have corruption. So we will never get transparency from people who won't talk about the corruption. And you talk about the corruption. That's why I respect you. And so
Well, I appreciate that. But to be honest, my opponent at this point in time hasn't said anything. He has never been in this position before. But right now, he has not absolutely said anything to my knowledge about his platform or anything. I think he's been at a couple gatherings here locally. He's done internal networking. Let's put it that way. I'm not for sure if he's going to reach out to the general public or not. I can't speak for him. I don't know that. But at this point, I don't have no idea what his platform is because he's not put it out there.
Understood.
He's not said anything about anything. I don't. It's just been like quiet.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm not going to be quiet because I didn't mean to run for this office. I'm glad I did. God sent us where He thinks we need to be. Win or lose, I'm going to give this 1,000% chance to do what I got to do and to try to. But either way, I'm still going to represent our community and our county and the people of rural Missouri the best that I can. That's why I started Hillbilly Politics. I didn't know I was going to run for office. I started Hillbilly Politics to educate, to go to Jeff City, to talk to different people, to get gravel roads to the Capitol. That was my motto: gravel roads to the Capitol. Just to educate the people on the stuff that we're talking about right here. There's a lot of people in this area here that know a lot of stuff, and they won't go out to the coffee shops and talk about it. But when they sit at their kitchen table, they're going to talk about this stuff. They're going to discuss this stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important. And then when they go to the polls, hopefully they go to the polls educated enough to say, you know what, this is what we need to do, not vote for somebody just because, hey, I know him and he might do all right. You know what I'm saying? The same old good old boy stuff. Yeah. It's like a social club. You're voting for president of a social club.
That's right. And first I want to say hello to MM Now. It's actually an old friend of mine from Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast who's chiming in asking, have you mashed the like button? Thank you very much, because I am terrible at self-promotion. Please do like the video. Please do share it, especially if you live in the state of Missouri. Now, what we're talking about with Denver is stuff we're going to be dealing with all over the state of Missouri this year, this election cycle, guaranteed. But we have to have good people running for office, and a lot of good people don't want to run for office. Maybe we should talk about that for just a minute or two. Misty wrote something I want to read as well. Is anyone aware of the Blue Shield Initiative in Missouri? Kehoe, that's our governor, Mike Kehoe, is awarding municipalities this designation after they implement different safety standards, including flock cameras. So the municipalities qualify for grants because of the designation. Once again, that is literally, I would say, bowling for dollars here. This is part of the problem that we have in the state of Missouri is that law enforcement starts doing things against the will and the best interests of the people in order to get cash from the federal government, in the form of grants. We saw this happen with masking. We saw this happen with, from COVID. And we've seen it with other things having to do with COVID. But this is part of the problem, is that some of our sheriffs are so desperate for cash that they literally start shutting down anything their constituents have to say because they want the federal dollars coming in, because they feel they don't have enough money. And so does a county commissioner have any control over that?
I'm not for sure exactly, but I do know that they may not have a direct control. They may have an indirect control, and they should be networked enough with the right people that will accomplish the things of your community. If you're conservative, you need to be in the places you can to get
Sure.
it done someplace else if you can't, and to drive those to apply those direct political pressures to do that. I mean, you're in an office that there's a lot of unspoken power there that's not defined by Missouri statute, and that is the power of voice, the power to reach out and go talk to someone to help you. And you can't do that unofficially. Me running hillbilly politics, I can bring awareness, I can go knock on doors, I can do a lot of things. But as presiding commissioner, I can write those letters in an official capacity. I can start those wheels turning at the very official spot. You know what I'm saying, Patrick?
Sure.
You can do it. You can do it. There's so much more difference there. There's a difference between educating and hoping it gets done because you apply something, and walking into your senator's office or a representative's office or maybe even the governor's office, say, hey, this is our problem in Dent County. What can we do here? How can we stop this?
Yep, that's right.
And you got to be bold and brazen enough to do that. And, some people like me, love me, hate me, but I'm bold enough to do that. And I will do what it takes to give everybody the fair and equal representation that they deserve, that they're voting for, they're paying for. It's their tax dollars that's paying for our leadership.
Yep. Misty reports, yes, the commission oversees the budget of the county. I believe the approval of the county commission is required to apply for the Blue Shield designation. So the county commissioner can have say over that. And the Blue County Commission, the Blue Shield initiative in Missouri is literally about, I hate to put it this way, but militarizing the police is really kind of what it comes down to. Extensions of the federal government within your county through flock cameras. The databases don't reside in your state for the flock cameras. They take pictures of everything. And I have heard by the way, I have some experience with this. So I'm not just speaking, just to hear my own voice here. I'm telling you, I have some experience with this. And I do know the flock cameras are hardware spec'd for facial recognition.
Yep.
They're hardware spec'd for it. Now, can I tell you what's happening on the back end with the software? No, I cannot. But I can tell you they're hardware spec'd, not just to read 100 license plates per second. That's what these flock cameras are designed to do. But they are spec'd, hardware spec'd, for facial recognition at the same time. So chances are they are actually recording facial stuff as well as license plates. Go ahead.
They're also geared not only for that, but they use AI to actually match gait when walking. They're AI matched to do
wonderful.
Every single thing. They're just like the crap in China.
Okay. And
of course, these flock cameras, just like the Ring doorbell cameras that go through the Neighbors app, they kind of go back to a similar server and they all feed into NSA fusion centers.
Yep, that's right. That's what I think these data centers are for. Is not just flock cameras and all the data coming from it, but all the data they're getting from the apps on our phones. All the data they're getting from, basically from department stores and from anyone else who is willing to share their cameras with, a network. They suddenly just have all this data and they have to sift through it. And so they have AI sifting through it, not personnel. In fact, I don't know if you've heard the recent rumor that the reason the president wants the ballroom on the east wing of the White House is because underneath this massive, huge ballroom will be a massive command center that will basically be the brain of all the data centers that are going in across the country. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That is scuttlebutt, though. But the
fact wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
particularly with Palantir being in the vice president's seat.
Yeah, not only Peter Thiel and his band of thieves, but also too, look at everything that Facebook did during COVID and how close Zuckerberg is to the president and how much power the president has given to Zuckerberg. The big IT companies, basically this is a technocracy. And it just seems to me that the flock cameras are also connected to all of this. So that's my 2 cents worth on this. Go ahead.
Like what Misty was saying earlier, and the mention about making quote unquote compromises, if you want to call it that, for these data centers if they applied to these restrictions and all that.
Mm-hmm.
For the what is it, like everything from sound decibels and everything, because it's impossible to take those that sound level down. It's impossible.
Yep.
But also, you can outright ban the public water supply from selling water to the to any of these data centers. They all require the water in order to keep their systems cool, and if they don't have it, they can't exist there.
Yeah.
That's just a matter of fact.
Yep. And Misty is talking about something that I was kind of touching on or alluding to. She said every Lowe's has at least one flock camera in their parking lot. And that's because they actually are paid by the federal government to have the camera there. So it's not even about, Lowe's doesn't care about the privacy of their customers, but they do care about their income streams. And so the more flock cameras they put in, the more of an income stream they get from the federal government, and that's our tax dollars. What is the point of all of these flock cameras? I will tell you what law enforcement will tell you. If you go, and by the way, I encourage everyone who's watching this video, even though we're talking about Dent County today, it doesn't matter. Everyone should be talking to their sheriff and ask them, what is the purpose of these flock cameras? And I will tell you what they will tell you. And I know this because I work in law enforcement, as most people know, as an IT guy, by the way. And they're going to say, this is how we can catch human traffickers. And this is how we can get stolen cars. But the thing is, a human trafficker in a stolen car might be one car out of 300. So they're violating 299 people's rights to catch that one person. Now, law enforcement was never, ever, ever, ever set up in the United States before to literally be a dragnet, literally for crime. That's why they have investigators. That's why they ask questions. They ask for help from the community. But now they don't want it anymore. They just want flock cameras everywhere, just like they have in England, just like they have in China. And by the way, in England, these are referred to as Nest cameras, interestingly enough. And
they're low-res cameras.
I'm sorry?
They're referred to as low-res.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in England where we're calling them flock cameras. In England, they call them Nest cameras. And so,
pretty sure they call them low res. There's the low emission. Their claim was emissions, though.
Okay,
Emissions counters.
Okay, I'm sorry, Caleb. In 2006, they were called nesting cameras. I have videos that prove that. And so,
well, that's what they call them now, though, because they've changed what they use them for. So they put a different name on them, I guess.
Okay. So the cameras going up is a secondary concern, but when it comes to a county commissioner, it becomes a primary concern. Are they going to be in that county? And so, and I think you answered that question, basically to the best of your ability at this point in time, that if there were flock cameras going up in Dent County, and if you were elected as presiding commissioner, you would do everything in your power to get rid of them, I think is what you were saying. Is that correct? Or
well,
stop them
there's
from coming
three. I believe there's 3 here right now, and there's a lot of people not happy about it. It's a big issue. Let me give you a little example here,
Sure.
Patrick. So 2 years ago, I went to the presiding commissioners and I said, hey, are we going to put in the senior tax freeze on, just write the ordinance. That's all they had to do was write the ordinance here in Dent County, because that's what the option was. Was a SB, I forget the Senate bill on that, but well, they said, no, there's a lot of confusion. We're going to see how the Senate works out. So we went through that process for about 7 or 8 months. So I went back and I'm like, hey, are we going to turn this into an ordinance for senior citizens? Well, it turned into, well, it's only going to be $5 or $6, whatever it was. I said, well, that's Patrick's $5 or $6. It's his choice whether he wants to do it or not, because state law says you can put a freeze on senior taxes, right? So then it turned into a great big deal that I started a petition to have it applied on the ballot. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but we've got gathered signatures. So then there was a little bit of concern about the wording. So we had to change the wording and start all over with this process. So we finally got all the signatures. The wording was right. It went on the ballot in Dent County. Now, all the commissioners had to do was simply just write the ordinance that says, hey, but no, then I go to a meeting and one of the commissioners is like telling me, hey, you're going to close our hospital here. They're going to bring the keys in, lay it on my desk. It was quite interesting. There's a video out there of that whole exchange. So that's what it takes right now to get something done in this county. You simply walk in, you ask for the right thing to be done because it was applicable by law, and they ignore you. So you have to go through all the extreme measures to do it. So then it went on the ballot. It got passed like unanimously. I mean, it was like an overwhelming, even though they botched up the wording of it, in my opinion, on the ballot. A lot of people felt the same way. That did it where it was kind of confusing on the ballot itself, but it passed. So here recently we have the data center information coming out and coming up. So to let you know, and I don't think we've talked about this yet, I'm going to approach the current county commission that we have here just to see if they will put it on the ballot so we can maybe ban those from here in Dent County in this area here. If they just make it into a ballot measure and let the community decide for themselves, we might be able to avoid steps 8, 9, and 10. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. In fact, actually, MM Now actually said something here that actually works in that direction, exactly what you were talking about. He said the flock cameras in Holton, Maine were disabled after a voter uprising at town hall meetings. The cameras used facial recognition and thus were ruled unconstitutional and were disabled. Facial recognition is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Storing, basically for people just being out in public, minding their own business, not causing an upstir, not creating crime, and for their faces to be stored in a database so they know exactly where they were and at what time when they didn't commit any crimes is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And so, at any rate, I guess that's what they did in Maine. So thank you for that, Mike. I do appreciate you putting that up.
Yes. I wonder how well that would go here in Missouri.
It's the same Constitution. It's the.
I get you, but we're in Missouri, not in Maine. But nothing's not worth trying. If you don't try, you don't know.
Well, no. What I'm saying is we're much more conservative than Maine. So I think that is a very, very good thread he just gave us to pull on. So thank you again, Mike. I appreciate you, buddy. So, yeah, there's probably a surprising variety of issues that we've never even talked on. I did talk a little bit about zoning at the beginning of it because that's a big one, basically for a commission, because, you don't want, Section 8 housing coming in, right near your town square, and that sort of thing. And they worry about the riffraff coming in and stuff like that. And this is one of the issues we were dealing with at Christian County, and trying to remember the year. I'm going to guess it at 1999. And basically, they were putting in low-income apartment complex, and right next to Turnberry Estates, that just got completed at the time in Ozark, Missouri. And so people were complaining, well, if you're going to put up this apartment complex that's 4 stories, people will be able to see over our fences into our swimming pools, with our kids and our, our wives, in swimming pools and that sort of thing. We don't want that. And so what I remember about this was about 400 people showed up at that meeting. And every single citizen didn't want it. There wasn't a single citizen that wanted it. And all the questions were asked and posed, all the problems, the possible problems, the unintended consequences. All this was all discussed, and it was a banger of a meeting. And even the guy who was representing the people that wanted to build the apartment complex, basically had his tail tucked between his legs. But guess what? They built it. They put it in anyway. They redistricted to make sure that they could put in the multi-dwelling house or zoning or whatever it is for an apartment complex. Low income. And so then the riffraff started coming into Ozark, exactly what they were trying to prevent, the people. But the commissioners couldn't turn down the tax money.
Mm-hmm.
And they even made concessions for bringing in water and electric. The taxpayers got to foot the bill for that, and they didn't want this. These are the kinds of things that people say, I'm throwing my hands up in the air. There's nothing more we can do. These guys are just all corrupt, and we can't get anything done. They're not listening to their constituents. And this is, the kind of thing that we see, time after time in pick a county. And this is the kind of thing that you're wanting to put an end to.
Well,
I
it's
suspect
funny
you're going to
what
be
you just said
attacked.
there. Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to do some work. But, it's funny what you just said there, because the city of Salem here, which is the county seat of Dent County, just went through something very similar to what you're talking about right there. There's a local, it's called I think it's the Salem Housing Authority, which is autonomous from the city. They're not connected with the city, but they wanted to bring in low-income senior citizen housing into Salem. So they're wanting to put in a 40-unit housing project. There's right at 5 acres where this is going to go. So every neighbor around there on our east side and lots of other people, the infrastructure will not support what they're wanting to do according to the people living there. Some of these people have raw sewage coming up in their houses and their toilets and in their bathtubs or sinks, water. There's electric issues over there. The streets, there's no parking. So the city goes ahead and gives this 5 acres to the housing authority. That's not necessarily bad. I mean, you got to have housing. Salem is really down on housing. It's hard to find good housing here. So I understand the need, but the process is just ignore everybody. So then they use the guise of getting this housing project to, I guess, I'm not for sure. I don't want to speak out of turn here because I don't know all the details, but I know there's a grant associated with that to upgrade some of the infrastructure over there. Mm-hmm. But they're like, there's no way that this is going to support, the infrastructure is not going to support this 40-unit housing project with everything else that's already in place over there. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And all these people's like, no, we can't do this. But yet the city of Salem, here we go. We're building a 40-unit housing complex right where the people says, no, we don't want that at.
Yep.
So, yeah, I get you, Patrick.
Yep. But that's what needs to stop. And basically going after this kind of corruption where it's literally they're putting the taxes that come into the county before the people. And this is why I say it's important for people to go talk to their sheriffs about these flock cameras, because a lot of them are getting paid to actually put them up. It's important to find out if your sheriff's department is getting a grant from the federal government to put up these flock cameras, because they're putting up these flock cameras violating everyone's Fourth Amendment right. These sheriffs swear an oath to uphold the Constitution and, by extension, your rights. And it's so anytime you hear a sheriff saying, well, yeah, I agree with the Second Amendment, but means no, you don't. If they say, well, yes, I agree with the Fourth Amendment, everyone gets a right to privacy, but in the case of these flock cameras, we're able to, set up a dragnet situation. We can catch real criminals. It's always a but, isn't it? There's always something like that going on. And this is literally how the corruption starts. It's over budgets. It's over how much money, operating funds you have. It's over pet projects. It's over making sure that, your pet projects go to relatives and friends, basically, and it's the nepotism that comes with it. I live in Christian County, and we have one of the most appalling stories. Our sheriff, Joey Kyle, went to prison while he was a sitting sheriff because he embezzled $1.5 million. And so, of course, they gave him 1 year and 1 day, and if anyone knows how legally this works, that means he was out in 90 days. Whenever you get sentenced to 1 year and 1 day, that means you're out in 90 days. And that's exactly what happened to Joey Kyle. And then he went contracting over in Iraq. Got himself a sweetheart deal, training police officers over in Iraq. And I do believe that he was only asked to pay $150,000 back, or 10% of the $1.5 million that he had embezzled. And the fact is, this kind of stuff just drives people to literally say, I'm done. I'm not even voting anymore. You can't get anything out of these people. And by the way, there's no accountability, basically for people in government. Now, if I embezzled $1.5 million, you can bet your whatever, I'd be in prison for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
obviously, unlike him, you would have your gun rights stripped away.
That's correct.
Because technically, anything over a year, whether it's a misdemeanor or not, is supposed to strip you of your gun rights.
Yep. And so,
or at least not supposed to, but
sure. But this is a two-tiered system that we're dealing with. And what we have to do is we have to break it down, and we have to literally start going after our corrupt people, even at the county level. We have to go after our corrupt people at the state level. I have seen, like, for instance, I live in Clever, Missouri. I think everyone knows that. And we did have a, oh, dear God, what was the position? Basically a county clerk that embezzled $200,000 from little old Clever, Missouri. I didn't even think that this town developed that kind of revenue in a year. We have this is a sleeper community I'm in right now. There's not a lot of industry here. So a lot of people who live in Clever work in Springfield. It's one of those kinds of towns. And restitution is all she got. $200,000. And I don't think her restitution was $200,000. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been $40,000 was her restitution. These are very interesting problems that we have when people do get caught at the local level that are elected officials. And so we have to start going after these folks. If we don't go after them, these problems will continue happening. Pardon me.
You're absolutely correct. And, here in the near future, Patrick, you and I have had private conversations about some things that's going to be, I don't want to say a lot about those tonight.
Sure.
Because I'm not prepared to do that yet. As you know, there's a big undertaking that's already happened. There's a lot of things that's been exposed, and without getting too much into that, because I don't want to say something unless I'm actually got the document in front of me. Is that fair?
Sure, that's fair.
So with all that being said, at some point in time, we got to ask ourselves, does our local leadership, are they competent enough to know between intentionally defrauding or doing things wrong to the public, and just because they simply don't know? Because some of our leaders they're dumbed down because they're taught or they believe that they're just, I'm just a guy here grading the road, or I'm just a guy here doing this, or whatever they may or may not be doing. Perfect example. The mayor of our city, I've known him for a long time, and he's actually one of the guys who's been picking up trash in our community for years. People tease him, call him the trash man, but he's the guy that gets out there in snow, ice, rain, whatever it is, at 5 o'clock in the morning or earlier, picking up people's trash, and has done it for years, right? So with that being said, he's mayor, but he's not the one that has the power of our community. That power over time has been shifted to what they call the city administrator, because I guess maybe the mayor didn't get paid enough, or I'm not for sure what happened. So the ultimate power lands with the alderman and the city administrator. So the mayor is just there basically as someone who conducts the meetings. He orchestrates the meetings, but is in his way of power. I think about the only power he has is to veto something, and that has to be, there's a process for that even. So with that, when you're talking about corruption, is it knowingly or unknowingly? So if it's unknowingly, then is it just, I don't even know how to say it without
being. It just becomes a crime.
defensive.
It's not necessarily corruption at that point. It might be just a crime.
Right.
And you're talking about a city, with an executive manager versus a mayor that's actually in control of the city. And there's a name for that. I can't remember what it's called again. in fact, the mayor is in charge in Clever, but the city manager, who is a hired gun, basically is in charge in Aurora. It just depends on how the city incorporates and how they set up their rules. And it's important for people to understand your city is a corporation, just like Sony is a corporation, just like Disney is a corporation, or Lowe's is a corporation. So is your town. Your town is also a corporation, and it's got budgets. It's got its own law, its own law enforcement arm. That's your police. To enforce the ordinances that the city puts on the people, so they can, basically make money off the ordinances and make money off the people, so they can simply exist. It's a corporation that actually is not supposed to be for profit, but just bring in enough money for what their needs are. The problem is they keep coming up with more needs all the time, which is a similar problem with our public schools. But all that being said, and I went off track there by saying that, but the two-tier justice system that we have here, we're seeing this all over the place. You see all the corruption in D.C., nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. You see, gosh darn it, what's the name of our Senator, Josh Hawley? Just literally just dragging people through the coals, looking so cool up there in Washington, D.C., sitting there, basically going after the bad guy. And no charges ever get filed, even though he brings up complete evidence of criminal action. Nothing happens. And this is part of why the people have lost faith in the political system, much like they have lost faith in the medical system after COVID. Now, a lot of us lost faith in the medical system before COVID, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I would say that a lot more people lost it because of COVID. But what we're seeing in politics right now, people are losing faith, man. They're losing faith. They just see the corruption just go, literally forever and ever with absolutely no ramifications. It's the two-tiered system. As soon as you get elected into office, you basically have immunity from anything. And that's what they're showing us in D.C. right now. But that's also a symptom of what we call a banana republic. And basically to see our states and our counties become banana republics kind of makes sense, because that's the way we're going at the federal level. But people like you that come in and run for office actually give me some hope. People that literally say, we definitely have corruption here, and we need to root this corruption out. We need to find out who's greasing whose palm here. We need to find out, why his cousin Guido always gets the contracts in the county to do any pavement. We need to find out, this, that, and the other thing. And that's the kind of thing that we need really to take place in our counties, to restore that kind of, let's just say, the faith that we have in our local government. Because, as you know, Denver, when it comes down to it, it's really your local government really is the one that you're going to look to for protection when things go south with the federal government. And it's happening every day, a little bit more every day. So people go, well, at least I have a good sheriff. Well, most people don't. They don't know their sheriff well enough to be able to determine that. And I know this from personal experience. And this is why it's very important that people like you, who have tried to make a difference, who have had their names dragged through the mud, and yet you still get back up on the horse, and you still try to make a difference. And there's not enough people out there like that. I mean, do you have a message for people out there that have considered running for office, but maybe were afraid to because the opponent's attacks would be so vicious, so violent, dragging them through the mud, making up stories about them? Basically, do you have any advice for those folks, whether they're in Missouri or not?
Well, this is what I've learned a long time ago, because politics is brutal. You know that. Mm-hmm. So what I've learned a long time ago was, it's always faith over fear, Patrick. Mm-hmm. You put your faith where it belongs. God's going to set you on a path. First, let me tell you this, so there's no mistaking about it. I'm a firm believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. He's my Savior, and He's who guides me. I do nothing without prayer, and I do nothing without talking to my family and the people I trust to make sure that I know that I'm on the direct path. If someone disagrees with me, they need to say, hey, Denver, you're doing this. This is not right. I mean, I'm okay with people telling me I'm not right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the first thing is I have humility. If you come to me and you say, Denver, there's something not right here, I'm going to listen to you. Now, we may not agree all the time, and we probably won't, Patrick, but I'm going to listen to what you got to say. So for those people out there who's afraid, because there is reprisals coming to you. There could be things coming at you because people, they don't want to stick to the points. They want to go after something personal about you. They want to try to discredit you. They want to throw your name down the ringer. They want to do anything they can to avoid the main topics that affects your community. That's what they're after. They're not after to say, all right, let's go sit down and talk about these issues. How can we solve these? What's your ideas? What's your ideas? They don't want to do any of that. So you're right. They are going to come after you, especially the more you know. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can either help you or it can hurt you. Depends on how you use the knowledge you got and who it applies to. That's one of the main things. Who does it apply to? So the knowledge you have may affect somebody that don't want to be affected. They're saying, hey, I've done this thing for 18 years or 19 years. I'm good where I'm at. Just leave me alone. But the second you start bringing things out, that's when the repercussions come back to you. You know, no good deed goes unturned, Patrick. But I say keep the faith, keep going. If you can't do it, then support your buddy that can do it. If you got a friend that will do it because you can't, give him all the efforts you got. Him, her, take care of them, help guide them, go out there and knock on doors for them. Do whatever it takes to take back your local level of government. Because if you don't, like you said, there ain't nobody going to come help us.
Right.
We're it. That's it.
It's the end of the line when it comes to your local government. That is the end of the line for protecting your freedoms.
That's exactly right. So when it comes to your personal property rights, your civil liberties, just your basic, like you was talking about a while ago about the flock cameras and the Fourth Amendment. Who's going to protect you? They're already here.
Yep, that's right. That's a particular issue of mine because I work with law enforcement, and I've literally seen people literally make excuses for these flock cameras knowing they are violating Fourth Amendment rights. Yet they still make excuses, and they are law enforcement people that swore an oath to defend and protect the Constitution and the rights of their constituents. This is literally doublethink. These people literally have lost their minds. They don't even understand, I don't think, what they're doing at this point. But the money is so good. Hey, Caleb, would you mind taking over? I got to take care of something here real quick.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, buddy.
Okay. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. I was trying to do something. Sorry, I'm tired tonight. I just had to pour myself another cup of coffee.
Well, you're lucky. I haven't had my evening coffee yet, Caleb.
Haven't had it yet.
No.
It's been an interesting last few days here, so my mind's a little squirrely right now. But okay, where were we at?
Flock cameras, Fourth Amendment.
Flock cameras. Okay. Yeah, it's I tell you what, and I'm seeing it more and more around here. I know there's an app somebody came up with that actually tracks all their locations. I was trying to find the link for it. Or not an app, it's it might be an app now, but it's a website that shows like a map of where all these flock cameras are. It's like, everybody reports them in and everything. I think it's called D-Flock or something. But I mean, it'd be useful just about anybody to look into that. Yeah, no, they definitely feed into the same NSA data centers as everything else. Let's see here. I haven't done a podcast in so damn long. It's one of those. My brain.
Can I?
Yeah,
I think it's Misty. It's on there.
Yeah,
she said she's glad that I'm a man of faith, a man of God, bringing back into our lives and our counties and our government. She's exactly right. There's some things that's going to come to light here, not just in Dent County, but around this area here. And God is the key to that, by the way. He's the one that's putting certain people on paths to do things. Each one of us has our own personal lives. We have to triumph every single day to overcome our personal lives. There's a lot of things that affect us. Patrick has had more than his share of things over the last few months, and our prayers have been with him. And he's
That's an
sitting there in a chair
understatement.
right there, giving his time to me tonight, right now, which is such a blessing. And I will tell you that without God, we're not anything until we come together in the like-mindedness that we want to see what we want to see changed and how we do it. Then we're in trouble. Because complacency, this stuff, I'll stay on my side of the fence. Patrick, you stay over there, and what you do ain't none of my business. That's fair to a degree until we all have to go to the courthouse and we're trying to figure out how do we get in this mess, because we got a data center sitting over here. We got park rangers arresting locals because their taillights out on their car and confiscating their weapons out of their vehicle for no reason because they was on a state highway. And that list can go on and on and on. And then we find ourselves, we're like, what the heck happened? And Patrick's like, I don't know. I just been over here tending my cows. And Caleb's like, yeah, I've been sitting there and having my coffee of eating it. I don't know what's going on either, because it's complacency. And that's
I
what it
know.
is. It's just complacency. And we need to join back together and
I'm going to throw something else in there too that causes a lot of complacency. I got my brain kind of jogging now, so let's let's keep going. I've said this before on here. In one part I blame the public school system. In another regard, I kind of blame this entire culture shift that's happened over several generations to just blindly trust everything. There's a generation of people that grew up sitting there in front of the TV watching Fox News and said that's the only thing you need to do. I get that out of my grandparents a lot. It used to. I've kind of woken them up to some things and whatnot. But and there's a lot of people that just generally don't pay attention because they've been conditioned to that. They think there's nothing they can do whatsoever. All they can do is show up and vote for a politician they think might do the job right. And all the while, they end up supporting the same policies that, have been supported really since the new, if you want to start with the New Deal, you can go back further, but that have resulted in things like that park system and the things that have set the court precedents, that the overstepping of intrastate versus interstate.
Dragnet camera systems.
Yeah, and that's intrastate versus interstate,
Yeah.
and that's under the same guise of, they label it under the guise of commerce, that they can fund those things. Just like that's the same reason they claim they can stop you from, digging a hole and putting a particular plant in your backyard. I know during the FDR's administration, his angle was if you can, if it has something to do with national supply, then we can throw that in the court and say that it applies under interstate commerce. Well, the same kind of precedents are used to this day, and it's been continually supported for generations, that result in the flock cameras, the data centers, the every single thing to do with that. And throw in there too, what was it? Wait, where did I put I just had a copy of it. Oh no, I set it down. I can't find it. Patrick, I'll talk to you later. My brain's been kind of screwy for the last few days.
Hey, no problem, buddy. I appreciate you taking. My dogs were outside, everyone, and my dog was barking like he was being attacked, but really his feelings were just hurt, and so I had to let him in.
Speaking of dogs, Isaac has been missing for, my cat Isaac has been still missing since Monday night, and I think I know what happened to him. There's a dog out here that decided to try to chase two others, and that dog will not live long if I see it again.
Yeah, I hear you. Sorry, man.
That's, needless to say, between that and lack of sleep lately has been getting to me. But no, those same kind of, and the other thing about the parks, another angle to take with that, if you wanted to try to apply that, I don't know, you can't do this one locally, but you could at the state level, and that's to revoke consent for the allowing of the federal government to make use of that land, because under Article 1, Section, this is why I was looking for that again, because I can't remember which section it is.
Just tell us what it is. You don't have to give us the exact placement.
The point being is that the federal government, in order to make use of portions of land from each state, they have to have consent from that state legislature. to actually make use of that. I would imagine that the state could, under the 10th Amendment, revoke that consent.
It can,
For the,
but Missouri hasn't as of this time.
I know.
Unfortunately, Ron Calzone was working on that, I believe, in 2018.
Yeah.
But it is what it is for right now.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Denver, we're going to start wrapping up here, if you don't mind. But I did put a link in the description section of whatever platform you're on to actually Denver's website. It's dentcountyfirst.com. And I do believe, basically you have your platform there. You have a way to contact you there. You have a donation button there. And as we all know, when you're running for office, you do need some money. You got to at least get some yard signs. So I would like to make a personal plea to anyone out there, especially if you're in Dent County, but not just folks in Dent County, to consider giving 10 or 20 bucks to help the cause here, because actually Denver is willing to go in and clean up corruption. And guys, I promise you, you're not going to be finding a whole lot of candidates that are going to talk about cleaning up corruption. They're going to talk about transparency. That's the easy way out for them. Denver is not talking about transparency. He's talking about cleaning up corruption so they can have transparency again. This is the important difference here, gang. This is why I was very much looking forward to our conversation tonight. We need more people, not just in Missouri. We need them in Missouri. I live here, so I have an interest in the state. We need more people like Denver that are willing to put themselves out there, willing to take the hits, take the arrows and the slings, to literally get the right thing done and to clean up our corrupt state at the local level. And so, go ahead. Did you?
Silent Trunning said in here, where was it? Didn't President Trump sign an EO that pushes data centers into the states? I think it was a broad brush one, but also executive orders aren't law. And even if it was law, the states have the right to say absolutely not.
Absolutely. I agree with that. There is no way Trump can sign an executive order to push basically a corporation to set up shop in a specific place. The president doesn't have that kind of power. So look he's trying to get a ballroom done, and he can't even get it done. So trust me on this. Actually, when it comes to real estate, the man that we're talking with tonight, Denver, I meant basically this is zoning. This is, basically this is where the rubber hits the road, gang. This isn't at the state level. This is at the county level. And this is exactly what Denver's running for. You already know he is against the flock cameras. You know he's against the data centers. You know he's against corruption. You know he's for making Dent County transparent again. I ask you to remember this. And also, Denver, can we have you back multiple times, basically before the primary?
I'll come back as long as you don't get tired of me here, Patrick. Hey, before we get ready to go here, though, Caleb, I got something for you here, and everybody listen. So listen what I'm fixing to tell you, okay?
Okay.
So effective on the 28th of August, 1971, it's under Title II, Sovereignty and Jurisdictions and Emblems in the Missouri Revised Statutes, right? So we got 12.025, right? I'm not for sure of the numbers because it's point something else behind this. It's jurisdiction ceded to the United States within the Ozark National Scenic Riverways, criteria and other property exemptions. So one doesn't apply down there really, but they added it to it because they wanted to put federal prisons and honor farms here in Missouri. But here's what we need to listen to for subsection 2 here. It says jurisdiction concurrent with that of the state of Missouri is hereby ceded to the United States within the area comprising the Ozark National Scenic Riverways for as so long as this area is administered and maintained by the United States. Subsection 3, provided that no part of this section shall apply to the White River watershed. 4, provided that further that no part of this section shall apply to the Osage and St. Francis River watersheds. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, Caleb, or not. You can look into that. But there's the beast. That's the beast that ceded the properties that some of us is talking about down here for those are National Scenic Riverways. That's it right there. That's the heart of it all right there. That's what has to be tackled if you're talking about that part right there, Caleb.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yes.
Find it.
I will come back and visit you as much as you want. Matter of fact, I hope that next time we visit, I have some documents in front of me and we can really dig into some big problems that need to be solved pretty quick.
Okay, gotcha. I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you in advance because I know a very good friend of mine by the name of Sam Britton has a radio station up in Owensville, Missouri, Missouri Liberty Radio. Would you be all right with me handing him your contact information to have you on the radio?
You bet.
Okay. I know he'd love to talk to you. So I just wanted to get that done and out of the way, you know, basically because I know he has a show tomorrow night, and he probably already has everything all buttoned up, but maybe not next week or the week after. And so the thing is, we need to get your message out. It's time to clean up the corruption in the state at the local level. It is just time. It's far past time, actually. The 90s is where we should have been cleaning this up, honestly. But no one was concerned about it at the time. Everyone was fat and happy. But now that we see... I'm sorry, go ahead.
We also didn't have the kind of media outreach we have now. It was just
Correct.
plain Fox News or CNN or nothing.
Sure. And so YouTube didn't exist in the 90s. Google Video didn't exist in the 90s. So I get that. And Facebook wasn't around in the 90s. But the fact of the matter is, it's when basically we're coming to crunch time economically and politically. The end of the empire is happening. This is where the most of the corruption happens in a very short period of time. And so we've got to literally start looking after our backyards, folks. And Denver is willing to stick his neck out to protect the backyard known as Dent County, Missouri. And I applaud him for that. I mean, we need more people doing this, gang. And maybe if you have considered running, and by the way, it is not too late to file, and it's not too late to win an election for a local election. So if Denver, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, spend another minute. How much does it cost to file to run for a county commissioner?
Well, filing actually closed on the local level at the county level on the 31st of March, and it was $100.
Okay.
It was $100, which goes to the party you represent.
Okay.
I represent the Republican Party as well as my candidate. So we're going to go through the 4th of August to the primary, and whoever wins between now and the 4th, when they pull the lever on the 4th, that's done. It's an over deal. There was no other opposing candidate from any other party. So, you know, so with that being said, I want to just quickly just throw this in here real quick, Patrick. If you can hear me, and you live within the 5 or 6 counties around me, and you that data center town hall, which is on May 21st with Bill Hardwick and I, then we have the 11th of June. We have an Ozark National Scenic Riverways town hall, and that will probably also have Bill Hardwick at there, and probably some other people that we had not made the whole entire speaker list with that one there yet. So if you can hear me, Salem, Missouri, at the Armory there, the Salem Community Center there on J Highway. I think it's 1200 Rolla Road or something like that. I'm not for sure the address. That's horrible of me, isn't it? So keep those dates in mind and come and join us. And for sure, let us know what you think. Let us know how you feel. Bill's very receptive. I'm extremely receptive because it affects us. It affects every one of us. Even though you're down there and I'm here, Patrick, it's going to affect you.
Yes, it will.
It's going to have an effect on you.
Absolutely. In fact, when you get that flyer done for the 21st, please let me know. I will get it out to my email list, which is a substantial list for people in Missouri. And I would like to, before we close out here, gang, guys, we're in the process of redoing the website, the email server, and all that fun stuff. So everything's a little bit down right now. The website is down. The email is not working either. So give us a little bit of time. And remember now, no one's paid here. So all of us have regular jobs and regular lives. We do all this stuff in our spare time. We pay for everything out of our own pockets, and we have no problem doing that for the Missouri Freedom Initiative. So please be patient with us, but I will hasten the process of getting the email back up and running because we do need it. And when you have that flyer, I'll make sure it gets to everyone on our email list, and we'll get as many folks there as humanly possible to support you and Bill Hardwick. But once again, I'm going to make another plea. For those of you who can, if you can afford $10, $20 or whatever you can afford, to please help Denver in basically in this, nothing less than a crusade to me, to clean up Dent County, especially when Dent County is so critical to all the mineral and water right bills that keep going through Jefferson City. Dent County is on the radar, gang. It's a small county with, what is it, a population of 9,000 or something?
About 14,000 total here in our county.
14,000. And by the way, I live in a county of about 100,000. It's called Christian County. And what happens in Christian County is not as relevant to the legislation I see up in Jefferson City as Dent County is. Dent County is on the radar, gang. It's a target for some reason. We need to get rid of the corruption in Dent County so we can get rid of the folks that are trying to get legislation through to take our water and our minerals. You know, it's really that simple. And it starts at the local level that way. So thank you again for joining with us tonight. And we'll have you on many, many times. In fact, you're welcome to come on with us anytime we have a live stream as well. So
I appreciate that very much.
Updates. Let us know what's going on. But folks, please don't forget about Denver's crusade here to clean up one county that seems to be a particular interest to folks in Jefferson City legislatively, minerals and water and data centers and modular reactors. I mean, you're on everyone's radar over there. And it's a county of 14,000 people. So basically it's on us to be good neighbors. Even though you may not be in Dent County, you're a neighbor to Dent County if you're in Missouri. So, I mean, this is kind of the tip of the spear here, what you're dealing with over there, Denver. So I applaud you. Thank you very much for what you're doing.
I appreciate that. And remember, if you're trying to follow along with some of this stuff, and I don't get paid for hillbilly politics either. Yes, it is registered under, and you're going to get a kick out of this, Patrick. It is registered under Riffraff Media LLC.
Okay.
That's only for my own protection. I was a river rat. I grew up on the Current River, the Merrimack River. They both start right here. So I grew up on the rivers, and I was referred to on the other side of the tracks as Riffraff. So we went with Riffraff Media LLC. So that's what it is. So if you're on Facebook, follow along. We're just now starting to develop that system there to getting to people educated. So it's Hillbilly Politics, and that's politics spelled with a K, not a C. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm an open book. My phone number is 573-453-6089. And I know you just kind of cringe there, Patrick, but I'm a licensed bail bond agent in the state of Missouri.
Ooh,
so
nice.
Everybody has my number. It's on every jail cell, probably more bathroom stalls than what we'd ever want to think about.
Okay. You got one up on me. I thought everyone had my number, but
So I mean, it's in a lot of places. So, feel free to reach out. My phone tags a lot of stuff as spam calls. So give me a text first. Just let me know you're legit so my phone won't block you. But other than that, call me. I'm an open book. We can talk. I promise you that.
Yep. And basically keeping it real. If you are not in Missouri, but you really do appreciate the cause that Denver Ellis is actually taking up, please consider donating to him. You don't have to be in Missouri, basically to donate to someone running for an office in Missouri. But if you live in another state, you certainly want to make sure and investigate the candidates running for the local office for the area you live in. But Denver's the real deal here. So at any rate, folks, once again, if you can, please consider a small donation or a big donation if you can afford it to Denver to help him out in his crusade to clean up the corruption in Dent County, Missouri. Because like I said, it is on the radar up in Jefferson City. Everyone in Jeff City is thinking about and writing legislation having to do with the county that man is running for county commissioner in. We need to end the corruption there.
It is very selective, yes. Yep. I agree, Patrick. It's selective targeting there.
Yes,
and
it is.
And there's reasons behind that, and we'll get in further and down the road. We'll talk a little more about some things.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when we're ready for it, like he said, we'll chat more about that. That's why we're going to continue to have you back here. Basically when time allows and when the information, basically is ready to be released and stuff. But at any rate, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. It's been quite a while since we had a live stream. There's just been a lot of things going on in my life, a lot of personal things, and I got a lot of that stuff taken off my plate here in the last week. So we're going to reboot the live streams and get everything up and running again. But we have elections coming up, and there's very little we can do legislatively for the rest of this year. So we're concentrating on talking with people that literally want to clean up corruption in the state of Missouri. That's who we want to talk to. And so Denver is the very first person that I know of that actually is platforming with getting rid of corruption. So they can have transparency. Remember now, if you have a politician running for office saying that they're running to try and make government more transparent, they're missing the whole point of why it's not transparent in the first place. And they're not speaking the words to power. We have corruption in our county. It's time to literally expose the corruption and deal with it. We have to get this out instead of just saying, well, we need to be more transparent. That is a coward's way of saying they're not going to do anything about the corruption. So thank you again for joining us. And like I said, we're going to reboot these. So we'll be on again next Saturday, God willing, and we'll continue on with our Saturday nights at 7:30. But you do have a choice of what you can watch every Saturday night at 7:30. If you're spending it with us, you're honoring us, and thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. We're trying to keep Missouri free. So thank you once again for joining us this evening. Thank you for Denver for being with us. Thank you, Caleb and Cindy, and everyone else who was chiming in on the chat section. You guys have a wonderful evening. May God bless each and every one of you.